Boyle Sports. Don't just bet, choose wisely.
Hello and welcome back to On The Wire, brought to you by our partners Boyle Sports. Another fantastic episode coming your way. It has been the long-awaited, much-anticipated Dublin Racing Festival preview. But before I introduce you to our guest panel, I'd like to remind you of a fantastic offer. Plenty of fantastic offers on the Boyle Sports website, but one for our Irish customers is that you can bet €10 and get €70 worth of bet credits. If you scan the QR code on screen or make sure to look down in the description down below, you'll be able to avail of a very good offer. €10 for €70. What's not to like? Yes, delighted to be joined by a fantastic panel again on the wire. Looking forward to the Dublin Racing Festival. I'm joined by Dan Overall, Mark Boylan and Donn McClean as we look forward to 8 fantastic Grade 1s. Alongside plenty of handicaps, we'll be possibly discussing them in the 60-second selections at the end of the show. And we also have Gavin Lynch at the half-time interval of the show, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But gents, we have 8 Grade 1s to get through, so no time, unfortunately, for pleasantries. We're going to have to go straight in to the Nathaniel Lacy, a race that has held up very well. We've got declarations this morning, plenty of Willie Mullins horses in this. We've got Final Demand. Super Sunday sounds victorious. Donn, coming to you first. Final Demand, I suppose, is the new flashy horse. You know, one down in Limerick, but he's running up against Super Sunday, who has the Grade 1 form.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, Andrew. See Final Demand going on here and winning really impressively at Limerick, and he clocked a good time as well. He was actually more than 15 seconds faster than Beggar's Rock was in winning the handicap hurdle later on. That was an 80 to 102 handicap hurdle, so he should have been going faster, but it was still an impressive performance. And the second horse, Timmy Tuesday, went and won at Ayr next time. According to it's Will the Wise, who finished third, won at Punchestown next time. Even the fourth horse came out and finished third behind I'll sort that in a bumpered Fairyhouse. So the race is working out really well. And Final Demand, he has been high on the list. He's been a well-touted horse. And Willie Mullins has won 3 of the last 4 renewals of this race. Interestingly, the last 2 winners, Manella Cocooner and Dancing City, they weren't the stable selected. So you mentioned Super Sunday. It's definitely worth having a look at him. He was good the last day when he stayed on to take second place behind the Yellow Clay. He's a second season novice as well. And I always think of these kind of stamina type races, and the Nathaniel Lacy race, it always is a stamina race. It's 2 miles 6.5 furlongs or 2 miles 6 and a bit furlongs at Leopardstown. I think that kind of the fact that he's got so much experience, not just racing last year, he ran in the Supreme Novices Hurdle, but also the schooling and the practice that he would have got in the last couple of years as a second season novice. So he's a really interesting contender. He wears a hood and tongue tie as well. But I think Mozzie's sister might be a wee bit underrated in this, Andrew. She was a good bumper horse. She finished second in that good Grade 3 bumper at the Punchestown Festival last season, just in front of Aurora Vega actually. And thought her last couple of runs have been good. She finished third behind the Yellow Clay in the Grade 2 Navan Novices Hurdle when they didn't go a great pace, and she stayed on well to take third place. She got closer to the Yellow Clay actually than Super Sunday got to him the last day at Naas. And then she went to Limerick the last day over Christmas, and I just didn't think she jumped very well. Maybe it was the slow pace, or for whatever reason, she just wasn't that fluent. And I just think if she can jump a wee bit better, she could get in there among them. Declan Quealy's horses, they're in tremendous form. Yeah, I thought Mozzie's sister might be a wee bit overpriced in here and maybe a wee bit under the radar.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Mark, I know you were sweet on Mozzie's sister at Christmas time and maybe a little bit underwhelmed by that run, but can you see the point of her bouncing back?
Yeah, very much so. Actually, I spoke to Declan Quealy last night for a piece in Irish Field this weekend, and he wouldn't have put you off her in terms of he's got a nice team coming this weekend, and horses and flying form, as Donn says. I do think Final Demand is the right favourite. I just don't like the price. I think in a race where there's still a lot to learn about a lot of them, I don't think there's any particular value with him. I'm going to take a swing at a bigger price. I think Wingman at 25 is overpriced at the moment. He's a horse with lots of ability, got better and better as the season went on last year. He was never better than later in the season. And I thought he's getting his jumping act together, having company just on his outer definitely helps him jump straighter. And I think getting up to 2.6.5, that's going to be in his favour too. Look at Final Demand, every chance he could be your potential Cheltenham Grade 1 type horse. Not going to dispute that, but at the price, he's not far off, already been considered that level. I just think Wingman, he's got that battle hardened profile, and he might just still be improving. And maybe at an E-Trade price, as you mentioned there, the Mullins camp don't always get the rider bookings correct in this race. I'll take a flyer on Wingman each way.
Wingman each way at 25 to 1. Dan, come to you. This will be a very interesting race, not only for Grade 1 connotations at the festival, but I certainly would be looking at the likes of I Am Lorenzo, Sporting Glory, those types of horses, as maybe Martin Pipe horses, if they can get another run or two into them. How are you seeing it at the top of the market? Would you be in favour of Final Demand?
Now, I recall our conversations at the weekend where you were almost pleading with Gordon Elliott to get a couple more runs into particularly Sporting Glory. Please get him to the pipe. And you've got one here. So I think you're actually on the right steps in that regard. So I don't think he'll be troubling the judge here, but I'd be on with Super Sunday here. Say he's got the experience. I think it's interesting that the tongue tie goes back on for the first time since he was running in France. The hood goes on for the first time. I think Melika Kuna a couple of years ago won this with a first-time hood. I mean, he's got a good combination of still being relatively unexposed, obviously with that very good run earlier in the season, the Lawless and Ace off being quite fresh, but also plenty of experience for obviously running really well in the Supreme. I think at the current prices, I think he's around the 92.5 to 1 mark versus Final Demand 7 to 4. It wouldn't surprise me if that gets slightly more contracted close to the race, and I'd be a Super Sunday fan for this.
Move on to the juvenile race next. Again, another race that has held up well. I suppose the Irish juvenile scene hasn't really caught fire massively this year, but this is where we'll probably get those clues. And very similar to last year, where we had a raft of them coming from the Christmas race and one coming from a maiden hurdle. Storm Heart was that horse last year. And Mark, we've got St. Lucy this year. And as much as, I suppose she didn't maybe beat that much, she could have done it much more impressively at Punchestown.
No, and I didn't mind the way the runner-up ran since at Cork behind in older company in a maiden hurdle. Didn't disgrace itself. The third is an okay since as well. So I don't think it was completely meaningless form. But comments from Willie Mullins afterwards where he said, "I think this is top drawer material." That wouldn't have put you off either. And the thing that I really like all week, I suppose, I've been hoping that Paul Townend would side with St. Lucy, and he has done. So the fact that Paul is valuing that maiden hurdle performance over what Lady Vega Allen achieved in being second in a Grade 2 over Christmas, I take that as a nice vote of confidence too. She could be very, very good. She was the subject of good reports early in the season as well. And as you mentioned, this division doesn't look to have an absolute standout character in Ireland yet this season. I think Lulamba is the one across the water. But Hello Neighbour, he obviously came with a big reputation, did the job at Christmas. But I just feel St. Lucy, we haven't got to see anywhere like what she could be capable of yet. And I take the jockey booking as a nice tick in the box of what I already like. So give me St. Lucy here.
Yeah, Don, I know you were there was kind of musings about Hello Neighbour before he even ran over hurdles, a progressive flat horse even in 2 starts. We didn't see a whole pile of his juvenile run at Leopardstown, but he won, and he beat Lady Vega Allen, Sonny Bill back in third, and all of them reoppose. You'd think he'll kind of strip fitter and also possibly jump a little bit slicker for that experience.
Yeah, I thought he did, as you can see, kind of, he's done an awful lot wrong here, and actually Lady Vega Allen nearly got him. We only kind of just joined them over the final flight, but even on the bob of a head, like one stride past the line, she was up. So, but that said, I thought he did really well to win, given that he did so much wrong through the race. And I suppose it's similar to Copec de Board, who we're going to come on to later on, Salvatore Mundi, that which view do you take? Do you take the view that he didn't jump well, therefore he's vulnerable, or he didn't jump well, therefore there's so much more in the locker? And with him, I take that view. He's got a flat rating of 97, and that flat rating was only after 2 runs on the flat, one of them over an inadequate trip. The fact that he was able to win the last day, to me, that was a big positive. And look, he's going to have to be better. As Mark was saying, St. Lucy comes in with a big chance. The fact that Paul Townend is riding her is massive. She was 9 seconds faster than the handicap hurdle was on the same day, the last day. And that's a race that New Year's Eve race at Punchestown Veneer. Charm came out of that one. The Fred Winter Gardens of Babylon came out of it. Pied Piper came out of it, finished third in the Triumph Hurdle. So it is a race that's a good pointer. And yeah, look, the British horses, they seem to have caught fire. The 2 Nicky Henderson horses, and obviously the East India Dock the last day of James Owen. So you can see why they're ahead. They've got maybe there's a bit of a recency bias going with them, because this race, the last 4 Triumph Hurdle winners have come out of this race, including a couple of horses who were beaten in it, including Lossiemouth and Magsborough last year. He was only 3rd in this race. So it is a race that can be a very strong pointer to the Triumph. But in the shorter term, yeah, like there's not much between Hello Neighbor and St. Lucie in the betting, but yeah, I just think that Hello Neighbor's class might see him through.
Hello Neighbor for Donn. Dan, I suppose Donn makes an interesting point there. We are, very much underestimating the Irish juveniles, and as much as they perhaps, haven't looked like they've caught fire just yet, it would be remiss of us come Cheltenham time, I suppose, to completely be writing these horses off.
Well, I think you'd need to see something here to really put them amongst the conversation with Alhambra and East India Dock. I mean, what they've actually achieved thus far is above and beyond the Irish form. And ultimately, this is going to be the litmus test. Seemingly, they can't really split it at the head of the market. St. Lucie's been the real hype horse for this. Obviously, was generally the second favourite, now into favouritism already. Obviously, did look very impressive. And I can't tell if they were expecting that or slightly surprised going into that. I don't think they're necessarily expecting fireworks based on the early reports at home anyway. So not always a bad thing. Obviously, generally you want to see him improve and impress on the track rather than at home. She has to be respected. But I do think Hello Neighbour's getting to a stage where he's being slightly disrespected now. I think, bearing in mind we didn't see all that much, reportedly did quite a lot wrong over Christmas on his first hurdle start as well. Hood now gone for the first time to help with that keenness, still very unexposed in his own right. I'd expect him to confirm that form with Lady Vega Allen. I think realistically, he probably just got to the front too soon, and his early exertions were catching up with him. I think there's probably a fair bit of improvement left with him. And at the prices, the way they're going, if St. Lucie particularly starts to contract even further and Hello Neighbour gets out to that 5-2, 11-4 mark, I think I'd rather be with him in this circumstance.
Okay, 2 votes for Hello Neighbour, 1 for St. Lucie. We'll move quickly on to the Irish Arkle. All 6 that were in the 5-day decks have all stood their ground. So a good little race this. Matchborough, Il Atlantique, Firefox, Touch Me Not, Jeannot Lapin, possibly the biggest horse I've ever seen on a track when he won at Leopardstown at Christmas time. Dan, coming back to you, Matchborough, I suppose, is the talking horse from the Irish side of things for the Arkle. It seems to be a battle between himself and Sergino. You'd like to see him put in a bit of a show here, wouldn't you not?
Oh, you'd have to, yeah. And I fell in love with this horse at this time last year when he obviously ran a mighty race in the juvenile hurdle on his first start for the yard. Obviously, looked a real big stayer in the making that day, and arguably did the exact same in the Triumph itself, obviously staying on really strongly to get up to beat Carguest. So when he made his Chase debut here, the turn of foot he showed after the last really almost caught me off guard. Like, I already had him pegged down as a horse who invariably would probably want 3 miles in time. That may well still be the case. Obviously, that form ahead of Tully Hill and Asian Master hasn't exactly necessarily been frank, obviously both being beat by Mr. Gift since. So maybe that's a slight question. His weight for age allowance as well is starting to diminish. I guess tactically, I think this is the more interesting race, or one of the more interesting races of the week. Obviously, Il Atlantique has tended to dominate in his races. Touch Me Not, we know, goes forward. Matchborough made most of the running there. I imagine they'll be prepared to take a bit of a lead from those two. Obviously, Firefox as well as a horse who's gone forward in the past. So we won't be short of pace angles here. I think ultimately you'd like to see Matchborough go out and be impressive, but I don't think it's going to be as simple as the odds are suggesting. I think with the pace potential setup, at the minute it's not a betting race for me. But you would like to see Matchborough put in a good show, and we'd have a battle of the 5-year-olds in the Arkle against Sergino. I think that would make for a thrilling clash.
Yeah, I tend to agree that it's maybe not going to be quite as straightforward as the market suggests. Mark, it's a very hard race to really have a bet in. I suppose the one thing I'd have loved to have seen, whether a bookmaker will give it to me or not, is that I think on this ground that it's likely to be at Leopardstown, I'd back Firefox in a match race against Il Atlantique.
You read my notes here. To be honest, that's exactly my way of playing this as well, because I think Matchborough will win it here, I think, and I think he'll find Sergino too hot at Cheltenham. That's the way I'm expecting it to pan out to head into this. But Il Atlantique, as far as I'm concerned, is a proper soft ground horse. Even conditions at Naas, they worsened and worsened as the day went on, and potentially to worsen what the description was even at the time of some of those earlier races. And you're yielding ground at the moment on the chase course. It's softer on the hurdles track. I just don't see those as being the conditions that you see the best from Il Atlantique, especially at this trip, knowing he can get a little bit further as well. So, no, Firefox isn't a horse I absolutely love now either. He's kind of the bridesmaid often enough for me that I have a little bit of reservations. But if you want to try and find an angle of a 1v1 scenario, let him be the bridesmaid behind Matchborough, maybe get the better of Il Atlantique. So, no, he has no chance after the two of us have come on that kind of different angle here now,
that does tend to be the case, Mark. We don't have a very good record when we agree on things, unfortunately. we need to be polar opposites for any of us to be right. Donn, I suppose, again, you were very bullish on Matchborough when we were having our Cheltenham anti-post preview. You know, this is a horse that you'd like to hope has a massive chance in the Arkle, and he needs to be winning this really to have that chance.
Yeah, he does. That said, it's a good race. It's a very interesting race. I'd say Touch Me Not. There's going to be a lot of pace in the race headed up by Touch Me Not. I'd say he's probably the one who's going to lead. But Rajborough, yeah, look, he's only had 4 runs, 3 over hurdles on that chase the last day at Ferryhouse. And as Dan was saying, Tullyhill and Nation Master, they were both beaten by Mr. Gift next time. But I just thought the way that Rajborough did it, and Tullyhill and Nation Master, maybe the last day they get into a battle early enough, and Mr. Gift came and mugged them. But Rajborough, he was just so good last year. And Willie Mullins was saying when he came in as a 3-year-old into the yard, he said he's a Gold Cup horse. So to go and win a Triumph Hurdle in the meantime, that's massive. He jumped to his left at Ferryhouse as well, so going left-handed should suit him better. He should get a good pace. That should suit him as well for a horse who's probably going to get further. And he's just a hugely likable horse. Il Atlantique, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he goes, because the lads were saying soft ground is a surface on which he operates well. Also last year he won at Goran Park in November, then he finished second behind Reed and Tommy Wrong in the Lawlers race, and then his season kind of tailed off a bit. So it'd be interesting to see if he can maintain that level of form, because he was good at Naas the last day. He won with plenty in hand over Firefox. I always thought Firefox might be better over a wee bit further as well, but maybe the stamina tests over the extended 2 miles, that will suit him. But Il Atlantique, interesting, he's worn a tongue tie this season, and maybe that's the key to him showing improved form now over fences, or maybe it's just fences that's seen him improve. But he's a worthy adversary. But no, I'd like Rajborough. He's not a betting proposition. He's an odds-on shot on the day. But yeah, I'd like to see him going and winning, and I think he will.
Boyle Sports have some fantastic offers, and one of them being best odds guaranteed on racing, on your singles and multiples. Best odds guaranteed. You can't get much better than that with our partners, Boyle Sports. Irish Gold Cup time, fantastic race as it often is, and good to see not only obviously the big 2 in there, but also plenty of really good horses in behind, the likes of your Monty Stars, Empty Gardens from that Tremor race. Mark, Galopin Des Champs, Factor File, these are horses that the audience want to come and see, and they want to see put on some type of show.
You'd hope Galopin Des Champs is the type of horse who will go and put bums on seats, because like he is box office, and what he did over Christmas was like outstanding really to watch. Like for me, even in recent years, you big performances over Christmas, that's the one that will be up there for me in the last kind of 8-9 years. I think it was awesome, and knowing how good Factor File can be as well, knowing Factor File, how ready he was after beating him in the John Durkin, massive performance. Look, you don't need me to tell you how good this was. Everyone could see that. I'd be disappointed if he gets beaten here. Factor File, they're talking about riding a little bit differently. To me, look at the margin here. Look how it's getting bigger. I don't know how you're going to arrest that deficit, because it's very, very difficult to claw back. Factor File probably be second again. I think Monty Star is next in the market, but you have to have concerns over how Henry de Bromhead's horse is running at the moment. I think he's had 1 or 2 winners in the last 21 days, and he's had 8 of his 9 horses sent off, 7 to 2 or shorter have been beaten. He's had plenty of disappointments, but the one thing you say about Henry is he can pull the rabbit out of the hat. You don't need to worry this time of year. They will come better in deeper spring, come Cheltenham time. This seems to happen from time to time in the early part of the year, but just with a view to an Irish Gold Cup, where that's another one of the horses you're trying to maybe take on from a place perspective. I'd be a little bit concerned about what Monty Star could deliver. So I think it's going to be Galopin again, adding his name to another Irish Gold Cup, and I can't see anything beating him in March. It's just it's simple in theory, but it's never quite like that. It'll just be great to watch, and hopefully he puts on a show again.
They're saying about him being ridden differently, Factor File, and I was talking to Ruby Walsh around kind of Christmas time, and he was indicating after the race at Christmas, the Savills, that Mark Walsh potentially might have almost sat even further back to get the horse to really spit it out. But like I can't really imagine that they're going to drop Factor File in last or something with Galopin up in the van. Like you're going to give the horse 10 or 15 lengths out of the gate if you do that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I mean, if you want to go and eyeball him, maybe do you get to the bottom of Factor File's stamina though? Because I think at 3 miles he's fine, but you get into that intense Gold Cup trip maybe in March. I'd have the little query with Factor File. Maybe you could come at him and have one good crack at him at the last. Maybe that's what you try and do, and kind of catch him cold, nearly hit him over the head without him quite seeing you. But he's very, very hard to find chinks in Galopin's armour. He is. The most impressive part of his race, just consistency seems to be the last furlong. So, yeah, if you come and shoot him, you must not miss.
Yeah, very much so. Don, I suppose the only thing that's maybe going to be different to Christmas time is you do have the likes of an Embassy Gardens in there that, as we've probably seen before, likes to be on the pace, dictated at Tremor, and I'd assume very similar tactics would be employed. So he's not maybe going to just quite get a freebie out in front as maybe he did at Christmas.
Yeah, and look, Paul Tannen was excellent on him, Andrew, at Christmas time. He dictated a sedate pace, and look, we know that Gavin Lynch stays further than the Savills Chase distance, but he had that pace at the end of his race as well to see them all off. And like, the good thing about this, look, it's a massive race, as Mark was saying. It's brilliant. Galopin Des Champs, he attracts people anyway. The rematch between Galopin Des Champs and Factifal. Remember, Factifal beat him in the John Durkin Chase, which seems like a fair way ago now, but he did beat him. And then Galopin Des Champs obviously reversed placings at Christmas time. But there were only 4 horses in the race last year. It's a good deep field, and there are kind of really interesting aspects of it outside of Galopin Des Champs and Factify, like Embassy Gardens, as you said, Andrew. It'd be interesting to see how he goes now. Michael O'Sullivan gave him a super ride at Tremor the last day. Monty Star, I probably thought he'd do a wee bit better at Tremor than he did, but he ran okay. He's going to have to come forward from that, as Mark says. Henry de Vermaet's horses are not in tremendous form, so that's a little bit of an asterisk beside Monty Star. But you'd expect there's more to come from him anyway, especially given the sterner stamina test than he had at Tremor. But Galopin Des Champs, like he's just brilliant. Like he won the Savills Chase last year by 23 lengths. He only won it by 7.5 this year, but he was no less impressive in winning than he was on the previous run. He's going for his 3rd Irish Gold Cup in a row now, after the first in Speed for Salmon, to try and do that. And yeah, look, it's brilliant that he's here. It's brilliant that he's that type of horse that gets people interested, maybe people from outside of racing interested in horse racing. And yeah, you just want him to go and do the same thing again now.
Yeah, Dan, your thoughts?
I can't really see Galopin Des Champs being beaten, even if something takes him on for the lead. This horse has proven how tactically versatile he is in recent years. Obviously, won the first Gold Cup being held up, prominent next time out, can make the running. He can do it all, really. And I'd just say you're coming on Factify about how he's going to be ridden. I don't think it's all about this race with him now. I think it's very much an exercise on where do we go with this horse in the future. Obviously, it's very much Ryanair versus Gold Cup potential. And I think they're going to maximise his chances of being able to be a Gold Cup horse by almost trying to get him to relax, get him to settle and come with that one run. And if he's able to do so in this race, then so be it. But I think this is going to be more of an educational exercise if they do indeed ride him patiently. And if he's then hitting the line hard and he settles, you'd go to the Gold Cup in March with a bit more confidence that he's going to be able to probably be ridden a bit more efficiently and with a bit more belief that he's going to get that trip. Otherwise, you ride him similarly, he's keen again, then I think that pretty much firms up the Ryanair. So he's very much a watching brief. Obviously, Monty Star was one of the anti-post bets I put up on the first episode of this into the season. I didn't really mind what he did at Tremor. He's always going to be a horse who's going to peak for the Gold Cup. I don't think he's going to really feature much here, but a good staying on 3rd, that would be enough. And I still think in a Gold Cup that will cut up numbers-wise, he's a very life-place chance at a Gold Cup with improvement to come, given the yard and their usual MO this time of year.
Yeah, we'll be keeping a close eye on him. Those are the 4 Grade 1s on the Saturday card, and we're delighted at the halfway point of this episode to welcome Gavin Lynch, who's going to give us a few of his selections for the weekend.
Hi lads, how are you keeping? Sorry I can't be there for the preview of the DRF. Perhaps I might see you up there on Saturday, heading up there for the day. It should be good fun with the rugby on afterwards. 7 races on Saturday, 8 on Sunday. For me, it's the best weekend's racing of the year. Flat or National Hunt, it's brilliant. The first race at 1:15, the Nathaniel Lacy over 2.6, and to me it's not the strongest Grade 1 in the world. Super Sunday was second in the Lawlers and Ace. He's wearing first time tongue tie and headgear, but to me he runs a bit keen, and I don't know whether the 2.6, maybe he'll improve for his first run in a while, but I think he's beatable. And also sounds victorious, stays all day. I just don't know if he has the class to win this. The pace may come from Joystick, whose jumping is not amazing, and definitely Jasmine DeVoe. He needs to lift the legs a bit higher if he's going to feature. The 2 mares down the bottom are not too bad, but I still think that Final Demand will take a bit of beating. The Juvenile Hurdle looks a 3-horse race on paper. Bacchanalian might be good enough. Wendrock and perhaps Galileo Dame, maybe more thinking of the Boodles, we'll see. But Hello Neighbour, Lady Vega, Allen and St. Lucy are obviously the 3 jollies. Very little between 2 of them at Christmas. I think Keith would have learnt a lot from Hello Neighbour's run. I see he's wearing a first time headgear, and perhaps if Keith can hold on to him a lot longer, he's plenty of flat speed. He was rated 97 on the flat. Perhaps he will run a big race. And Lady Vega Allen's an each way price at 4-1. She could improve a lot. And St. Lucy was very, very impressive in Punchestown from a horse that has run well at Cork against an older horse since. So a really competitive race, the Juvenile. The handicap hurdle over 3 miles, to me, Meeting of the Waters of 112 has a chase rating of 148, so that's £36 lower. It doesn't always work out that horses going from fences back to hurdles with a lower rating always win or anything, but back in 2018, probably when you were in secondary school, lads, Total Recall ran in this. He had £31 in hand compared to his chase rating, and he went off 5 to 6 and won easy. Meeting of the Waters has £36 in hand, so he's even better in. Percival Le Galois is £18 lower over hurdles. He could run okay. I'm going to give you a couple at slightly bigger price. I think Flicker of Hope will run a massive race for Mark Fahey. He's a horse on the upward curve. He's got a lovely profile. Battle well to win at Navan. I think he's £9 higher, but he could run well. And also Glen Kiln, a massive horse trained by Michael Bow, stepping up and tripped at 3 miles, won well at Navan. I think he's 14 or 16 to 1, but I think he could get placed. But certainly for me, Meeting of the Waters around 5 to 2 or 9 to 4. I'm recording this on Thursday afternoon. I think that's good value. The Arkle Novice Chase, plenty of pace on here with Firefox, Illittle Antique, Touch Me Not, and also Magborough have all made the run before. So 2 trained by Gordon, 2 trained by Willie. They're not going to give each other too much room. So I'd say there'll be lots of pace on. Magborough will be slightly better going left-handed because he did jump to his left at Fairyhouse. He'd be very hard to beat, but I just don't like backing odds-ons any day of the week, particularly over fences. The more rain that comes for Illittle Antique, the better. He would love it really soft. Magborough, easily the most likely winner, but just at odds on, it's a race to watch. The Irish Gold Cup, Gallopin des Champs, basically unbeatable going left-handed. Apart from the mishap in the turners, he's never ever looked like getting beaten over a fence going left-handed. To me, he's the best chaser of the last 15 years. He might be the best staying chaser trained in Ireland since Arkle, so he's a fantastic horse. He's 9 years old. The talk is that they've said the Factor File is going to change tactics, and that might mean he drops out last, but I actually think that they might take on Gallopin des Champs up front. And if they do, it's going to be in a very exciting race. He did it last year against Gaelic Warrior and brushed him off, but he was a sick horse. So it'll be interesting to see the tactics if they do take him on up front. But to me, very, very hard to see past Gallopin des Champs. Like, he's just an amazing horse. We're so lucky to have horses like him on Constitution Hill in training at the moment. Embassy Gardens have won well in Tramore, could be one to maybe chase them home, but I think Gallopin des Champs to win. But as I said, it'd be interesting to see if Factor File takes him on. The 2 mile 1 handicap chase, this is not a strong race. I was hoping for a better price at midnight. It is. Made a dreadful mistake, 5 or 6 out in Fairyhouse. Stayed on late in the piece, as now ridden by Conor Stone Walsh, claims 5. He's gone up a pound, but with his claim you could say he's gone down 4. My mate Mozzie would have a squeak off 148. The only thing is he would love decent ground, so I don't think that's a strong race. And then in the bumper, this is a grade 2. Calypso Chance is not entered. That's not necessarily a negative because Gordon has missed this festival with a few of his big guns like Brighter Days Ahead, etc. To me, again, not a strong grade 2 at all. It's very difficult to see one of these winning the champion bumper at Cheltenham. Gordon's 3, Classical Creek, He Can't Dance, and Cocktail Brute will be up at the pace. I like 2 in it. I like Colcannon each way at 10 or 12 to 1. First time headgear. The horse he beat in Galway ran second to Calypso Chance in Navan. And also, I started a joke trains by Charles Burns. Just got up to win at Limerick at Christmas from a horse of Gordon Elliott, who since was bought by Gigginstown and won during the week. So I think the form is fine. He'll be held up towards the back by Finney Maguire. The best bets on Saturday, Final Demand, Meeting in the Waters. I'm going to back those 2, and I'm also going to do a Trixie today, Thursday. I'm going to back Kopek to board with those 2. And then in the bumper, I'm going to have a little each way on Colcannon, and I'm going to have something on I Started the Joke in the bumper. Enjoy the weekend, and perhaps, as I said, I might bump into you 11% on Saturday. Thanks, lads. See ya. Bye.
Another excellent offer from our partners Boyle Sports is that you can get money back as a free bet if second to the SB5 on selected meetings. Make sure to look down in the description below. Make sure to avail of a great offer from our partners Boyle Sports. Brilliant to hear from Gavin again, a regular of the show at this stage. And we'll move on to the Sunday grade ones. Now, we are recording this on Thursday, so we don't have full entries, but at this stage, we do have a fair idea, you'd like to hope, of where horses are running. And the Ladbrokes Novice Chase looks a fascinating race. Ballyburn, one of the most talked about horses in racing. Do we have Impere Pass now against him? Not declared for the Scilly Isles on Saturday. It seems, by report, that Willie Mullins is going to run the horse. Champ Kylie's in there as well. Plenty to get stuck into. John, I suppose we have talked an awful lot about Ballyburn in the last few episodes. Is it the case of, does he win here, or would you be taking him on from a betting perspective?
It goes without saying he should be better over the longer trip against Regina the last day in the wayward lad chase. He just didn't travel, didn't jump like a 2-mile chaser, and yet he finished second in the end. Well beaten by Regina, even going down to the final fence, and yeah, banked the final fence, which didn't help the winning margin, but back over a longer trip, this 2-mile, 5.5 furlong trip, that should suit him well. But it is intriguing that Willie's running, or looks like he's going to run in Perry Pass as well, talking about the silly odds, as you said. Interesting horse. Like he used to jump right over his hurdles, but then at Fairyhouse, when he won his beginner's chase, he jumped to his left. And then at Limerick, the last day, he jumped to his right at the final fence. So not sure going left-handed over fences at Leopardstown how he's going to jump. But he's a talented horse, as we saw at Aintree as well, when he got home in that thriller from Bob Ollinger and Langer Dan. So it is really interesting that he's coming on here. I think Ballyburn is the one to beat.
Mark, again, we were talking about a little bit about Madgeburg there and price. Like Ballyburn's a relatively similar price to Madgeburg. Geez, I'd far prefer to be back in Madgeburg against Il Atlantique than Ballyburn against Impere Pass and Champ Kiley.
Ditto, yeah. It's hard to find many Grade 1 winners that put in a jumping performance like they did as a novice last time and come out with a Grade 1 next time. In terms of Ballyburn as a prospect, I thought coming into this season that he was as good a novice hurdler going chasing that we've seen for quite some time. But then if you want to get picky with him, lads, you can look back and say how good were last year's novices overall. The Supreme has taken a lot of hits, and you're looking back at him beating kind of Jimmy Desai type territory in a Ballymore, maybe, or Gallagher, so we want to call it nowadays. Maybe they weren't an elite crop and he was just a fair way ahead of them. Now, he still meets some of the similar types here, but you do have an Imperial Pass who is in a different category to that, was a senior hurdler last season. Champ Kiley missed the year, and I liked what he did at Fairyhouse. For me, it's a no-bet race. You have 15 chances to try and make a few quid this weekend. This is one where I'm going to try and go all out for it, because it's the sort of thing, even with a view to Cheltenham, if you want to take the 5-2 about Ballyburn now for a round advisory, maybe you look clever in 5 minutes after this race if he goes and dots up, but if he doesn't, you're in real trouble off the back of 2 defeats like that. So for me, it's a sit and watch and learn race. But I think market wise, I respect Champ Kiley a little bit more than maybe they have done at the moment.
Yeah, he was quite impressive, Dan, on his reappearance. But I suppose Imperi Pass is the fly in the ointment here, which, because it's a horse that we weren't necessarily expecting. You think as well it might be a real kind of crack spare, well, not spare, right, but JJ Slevin will probably land on it with the way jockey bookings have been. Do you give him a chance of beating Ballyburn?
I think you have to. I think if you look at realistically what they achieved as hurdlers, obviously Imperi Pass, as the lads mentioned, like obviously won at the Cheltenham Festival a la Ballyburn, and arguably Imperi Pass won a better race as well. When you look back at the reciprocal form lines, obviously last year was a bit of a strange one. Obviously a few things went wrong over 2 miles, but ended the season well and has looked pretty much a natural over fences. He's looked a bit more accomplished than Ballyburn thus far. I think there's a very fair argument to say that at the prices of 3-1 versus 4-6, I think Imperi Pass at 3-1 makes far more betting appeal. Obviously, Ballyburn still has a lot of upside. We haven't really got to the bottom of him yet. All of his stamina, all of his pedigree is stamina based, and we're yet to see him in a real stamina test. So you have to bear that in mind. But at the relative price, as you say, I don't think you'd really be wanting to pile into 4-6 about a horse for us all that 2 miles Kempton good ground didn't help him last time out. Still few and a few sketchy jumps there, whereas Imperi Pass has looked pretty foot perfect thus far. So that would be the way I'd look to go if I was going to have a bet. But as Mark said, it's not probably the greatest betting opportunity, but we'll learn a lot from this race, that's for sure.
Tattersalls Ireland Novices Hurdle over 2 miles will be another good pointer to the Cheltenham Festival, because it does seem like we've got Salvatore Mundi as Willie Mullins' first string for the Supreme. And you would think, depending on how this race goes, whether it's Coppack de Board or Cade Doty or one of those types of horses, we may get the first string for the 2.5 mile race, or perhaps even a shake-up in the Supreme market. Donn, you mentioned Coppack de Board in kind of passing earlier on. Jumped like his tail was on fire at Leopardstown over Christmas.
He could be a seriously talented horse. He won the George Myrna bumper back in March on his first run, his race course debut, and that's always a good bumper, a good sales bumper. And then came on and did that. But if you can jump even a little bit better, like to me, I suppose similar to Hello Neighbour, that he's got all that potential to improve if he can just improve his efficiency over his hurdles. And even at that, he was still around about the same time as Work Ahead was in winning over the same course and distance, and he carried 5 pounds. He carried 5 pounds less, but he still clocked a similar time, even jumping as poorly as he did. So you'd think on Work Ahead, he's been fairly well touted at the Supreme Novices Hurdle. So it was a big performance by him. I expect him to go on and improve his jumping. as he gains in experience. And I think he's the one to beat. And you mentioned, Andrew, as well about where horses go after this. Is interesting. Sam Crowe, Gerhard, Ballyburn, they all went on to the Turners, won the Turners from this race. Appreciated and Classical Dream, they all won the Supreme Novices Hurdle. Looks like Salvatore Mundi, the Moscow Flower Hurdle winner. Willie Mullins usually runs his Moscow Flower Hurdle winners in the Supreme Novices Hurdle. So it may be that Kopek de Board, or maybe even Cade Duthie, that they could step out and trip for the Turners Hurdle this year after this.
Yeah, I just think that perhaps might be the case, just based off the two of them maybe wanting a little bit further than 2 miles. Mark, I would agree with Donn in terms of I prefer potentially Kopek de Board as the prospect. But if you're going to take the price, you're going to be going down to that first hurdle with your hands on your head, just hoping he doesn't skew it, or he doesn't give himself a fright again.
Yeah, look at it. It was obviously very, very concerning. And I've been a big fan of the horse for a long time, from bumper time. I've been very sweet in him as a Cheltenham prospect all the way through. And you're watching it the first few hurdles there, you're going, oh my God, geez, I look like some mug. But the engine is there, we know that. And I think, in general, a performance like that, if maybe he'll prove me wrong, but I think he can improve from that. It's that type of scenario as well for a horse that had one bumper run and he blows him away, he out in the clear on his own. It's a very different environment than to get thrown into a 23 runner maiden hurdle. I thought they went a good gallop in it, and Don's pointed out the time element of it too. I think that will have taught him an awful lot more than some horses will have learned from popping around in the maiden hurdle. Look, I'm not going to say it was a positive performance in jumping, but the ability he has is, I think it's up there with any of the Willie Mullins novice hurdlers this season. I prefer him to Salvatore Mundi as a type. Salvatore Mundi, he has his own quirks too. I think he will win, and I really, really do like him. I hope that he can go on and prove himself at the very highest level. The JP query with, I suppose, where these Cheltenham horses go, that's what I'll be watching this weekend, because obviously he's bought a new Lion who's favoured for the 2-5. Then you've also got Cowabunga and Cade Doughty thrown into the mix. So I think that's the big learning curve where we're going to go, because we know the new Lion is fairly fixed in the 2-5. It's where Cade Doughty and Cowabunga switch around, or what they'll do. That'll be fascinating to me. But I think this Kopek de Boer, he's maybe one of my stronger one of the weekend. I really, really have always liked him, and I hope he doesn't let me down or give me another heart attack watching him over Christmas or over the next weekend.
Well, best of luck, Mark, with Kopek de Boer. Dan, I suppose, can you see anything outside of the first two in the betting, or are we kind of stuck with these two, would you say?
I just hope for Mark's sake the Kopek de Boer hasn't been anywhere near Jasmine DeVoe when they've been schooling. I was thinking about this. I think Final Demand is the only Willie Mullins novice who's basically done everything right in his races thus far. Everything else you can crab in jumping or the way they've been keen, etc. So I think that's why he's so artificially short. But no, I mean, Kopek de Boer, everyone's kind of cottoning on to obviously that form of Cowabunga now. He beat Cocktail Divan. I think you can probably, I wouldn't take that too literally given the form of Henry's Yard. So I don't think you can necessarily say that's definitively better. I think in the long term, Cocktail Divan remains a really smart prospect. But if I was to decide one of the two, it'd be Kopek de Boer. I would say that Blue Devassi is a horse I have a lot of time for. I was kind of hoping he would go to Nathaniel Lacy, because I think invariably he will be better over further. I think he sets a reasonable benchmark, obviously well beaten by Romeo Coolio, but he does everything right in his races. And if there's a market where, say, Redemption Day turns up as well, I think as it stands, Blue Devassi is around 10-1. He's behind Redemption Day in the betting. If you could get even a without the 2 mark, and you can get a odds against price on Blue Devassi to without the front 2 in the betting, I think that'd be a cracking bet, because he sets a fair benchmark, and he is one of the more experienced professional in this lineup. So does he have the star quality of a Kopek de Boer? Probably not, but he's got the experience, and I do think he is a solid yardstick for sure.
Yeah, we've got 2 more to go, which we'll get through quickly. The Dublin Chase, Gaelic Warrior, Marine National, Solnus, all ran over Christmas. Solnus came out on top. Gaelic Warrior was staying on second. Mark, coming to you, I think Gaelic Warrior is the most likely winner of this race, but it wouldn't be an on the wire without me giving Marine National a bit of a trumpet. If there's a day where Marine National would beat Gaelic Warrior, I feel it's on this type of ground. I think Gaelic Warrior is a better horse, probably a better horse by maybe even £10 worth. But I just think Gaelic Warrior does want it a lot deeper than potentially he's going to get on Sunday.
Yeah, look, I don't share the same enthusiasm for Marine National at this stage of his career, but I'd be very disappointed if you had any way into this stage, given your loyalty to the camp. But I do feel Gaelic Warrior, it sounds like there's a chance that he was going to Christmas in need of a run or improvement expected from the run. And with that in mind, yeah, I think he'll be hard to beat. Not my favourite horse to be facing into at a short price, though. And you can say, like, when you look at this batch of kind of 2 mile chase at the moment, okay, El Fabiolo, we're viewing him here through the prism that he's going to be needing it, you have to imagine, given the time he spent off and the vibes from the yard, it sounds like this is going to be maybe a stepping stone towards the spring. Maybe he'd still be able to do it, and price-wise, it'd be interesting to see how they price him up after declarations. But the impression I just get from looking at this is it's John Bond's division to lose across the water. I don't see something happening here that has immense consequences. And if Gaelic Warrior can't beat these pretty comprehensively, the Champion Chase, it'll become even less of a spectacle, I think, than we need to be. Marine National, I can see what you mean with the ground, but I'm just looking at what's the standout piece of Open Company form. I know he's had time on the sidelines, even his novice chasing form. I think he needs to deliver a new level, and maybe that level is in him, but I've just yet to see it, and I'm not really willing to take a chance at the prices. So I think Gaelic Warrior is the likeliest winner, even the way Solness got a bit of a freebie the last day. Great ride from JJ Slevin. Surely they won't let him do that once more again. I'd be interested to see what JJ rides, even if Paul does ride Gaelic Warrior. Does it then leave JJ with the new gig? Would he take out Fabiolo, or is he on Solness? It'll be interesting to see how that shapes up too. But I think Gaelic Warrior likeliest winner, but I'd be delighted for you if Marine wins. I'll hear you roaring from halfway down Fox Rock.
It'll be a long night if Marine wins for everyone near Andrew, let me tell you now. It'll be a long day.
Even I would concede, though, at the moment that the price has become ordinary. It wasn't bad at the start of the week, but it's fair short now for the chance he has. Dan, as Mark said there, we're going to have to get a performance, and it really has to come from Gaelic Warrior. Potentially, I suppose, El Fabiolo is the only other horse in the lineup that, on his absolute best, could shake up the Champion Chase market, but it has to be Gaelic Warrior here, does it not?
Well, it does, but I mean, if there's a betting proposition for this race, I mean, you remember this time last year where he kind of disgraced himself, really, here. Obviously, I can't help but have that in the back of my mind, and he is one of those horses where I don't think you can ever have maximum faith in him at a short price. Obviously, he then turned up in the Arkle and looked unbelievable, and an Arkle that's worked out pretty well at that as well. So he is one of those horses. Obviously, heavy ground, I think, is quite key to him being his absolute best. I just think, despite the yard form, Calixios is the overpriced one. Like, I can't really figure out why he's 16-1, whereas the likes of Marine National were 4-1, at Solness around 9-1. Bearing in mind, obviously, Calixios put Marine National away quite comfortably at the start of the season at Nace. Now, you could obviously mark up Marine for a couple of reasons on that occasion, but Calixios is still an unexposed horse in his own right. Ran perfectly well behind John Bunn at Sandown, where Solness was well behind. Prominent run style, which will suit. We know Henry's a master at getting these horses to keep improving. Now, does he have the ceiling of a horse like Gaelic Warrior? Of course he doesn't. But if he can run to a mark around the 160s and a Gaelic Warrior underperforms, I'm not sure there are too many others that have that potential to reach that level of form, really. So around 16-1, you're getting 3 places there. Obviously, yard form is a concern, and I think if Henry was actually firing the winners, he'd probably be half the price. So at the prices, I'm willing to take that chance, and I just really wouldn't be interested in taking a really short price about Gaelic Warrior.
Calixios each way for Dan. Don, quickly on the Dublin Chase, your thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't give up on Marine National either. He's only had 4 runs over fences. He's a Supreme Novices Hurdle winner. And, okay, he disappointed badly in the Irish Arkle at this meeting last year. But then his first run this season was probably acceptable against Calixios. But I thought it was a good step forward the last day. He seemed to tire, because he got in front of Gaelic Warrior on the run to the last, and then he seemed to tire with the run-in. I expect him to come forward again from that. Barry Connell's horses are in good form. And the other thing is, he ran around the inside for most of the race at Leopardstown the last day. Solness went around the outside, as Mark said, super ride from JJ Slevin in the fog. And like Marine National, he's 8 years old now, but he's very, very likely race. He's only had 3 runs over hurdles as well. He won them all. He's a Royal Bond hurdle winner, a good Supreme Novice hurdle winner as well. And yeah, I think he should be closer in the market to Gaelic Warrior than he is.
Very good. We'll move on to the Champion Hurdle. State man, Lacy Mouth. Paul Townend's got a difficult decision on his hands. Mark, if you were Paul Townend, what would you be riding and why?
Well, lucky for Lossiemouth supporters, I won't be having that decision to make, but if I was Paul Townend, I'd be on Lossiemouth. I think you look at the Champion Hurdle picture in March, and you look at their respective prices, and you look at State Man, for all he is a Champion Hurdle winner, I don't think we've ever seen the very best of him at Cheltenham. I think the best of him is seen elsewhere. That might tilt it back towards this, but if you want to learn about Lossiemouth as to what you're going to have come March, I think you take the chance and do that. But the only thing, the caveat here, is the loyalty Paul Townend has to the Donnellys through the years, and he's shown that, and it's paid off for him. But it is that's a factor you have to bear in mind here, that Paul could stick with the champion who is already established. I just think that Lossiemouth coming in here, even if we view that she wasn't at her very best at Kempton, she's got within 2.5 of Constitution Hill. If that's still not her best and you feel there's more to come from her, I think that type of form is it's far more impressive as seasonal form this year than what State Man has delivered in either of his first 2 runs. And look, we know he was completely off colour, State Man, at Christmas. And Lacy, we're watching the VT here. She does stay going. She did plug away. You can make the case that she was ran off her feet early. I just don't see that being as the same sort of scenario here. Maybe we'll get a fly in the eye when they tries it, but it seems to be a Mullins-shaped grade 1. I don't think it'll have the same slant as it did at Christmas time. I just view Lacy as the one that looks the likeliest one to trouble Constitution Hill in March. And I think she is at a better place on the rise, more so than State Man. I love State Man to bits. I don't like knocking him. But just potential wise, I think you got to side with Lacy here. She's got the pace maybe that could do him around here.
Yeah, I probably tend to agree. But Don, I suppose looking at State Man, like bar the last day, like Leopardstone's really been like a home away from home for him, and just the way this race might set up, he might even get it easy enough on the front end by himself.
Yeah, look, it's going to be really interesting to see what Paul Townend rides. As Mark was saying there, like he does love State Man, and he's always said that he hasn't got the credit that he should have got. I think he wasn't at his best in either of the last 2 champion hurdles when he was beaten by Constitution Hill, or last time even when he won it. But just like his 2 runs this year, okay, he was beaten by Brighter Days Ahead on his first run in the Morgana hurdle when you'd expect him to come on from that, but his last run, and look, it wasn't the real statement. Winterfell got up and beat him for 2nd place, obviously. So he's going to have to bounce back from that. Whereas Lacy, while it was a disappointing run the last day when she just didn't travel through her race, she didn't travel with the same verve that she normally does. She didn't jump with the accuracy that she normally jumps with the last day at Kempton. So you'd expect that she will do better here. She's only 6. She's 3 years younger than Statement. She obviously gets the £7 a mare's allowance. So like the market has them, they have her in front of him in the betting, and I'd agree with that. I think as things stand at the moment, she's the more likely winner.
And Dan, just quickly, your thoughts before we get on to the 60-second selections.
Yeah, no, I'd be with Lacy. I'd be surprised if Paul doesn't choose to ride her. I think that she's, as the lads have said, she's the one up and coming. That run behind Constitution, under the circumstances, was perfectly acceptable. This will be, I think, a bit more to her liking. And State Man, it was so uncharacteristic to see him run so poorly last time, and you'd kind of want to see him bounce back now to almost ensure that he isn't just on the decline slightly. I mean, what would you prefer, Andrew? Because I know you're a massive State Man fan and you've always given it large when he's proved people wrong. Marine Nationale or State Man to win? What would get the biggest kind of I've told you reaction?
I think it would have to be Marine, just because so many people have written him off. I don't feel State Man doesn't get anywhere near the same pelters that Marine does. But look, I think jockey bookings will be incredibly important in this race. I would be like the guys. I think Paul will be on Lossiemouth, but if he was on State Man, I think that's a huge, huge boon in his favour. We'll move on to the last part of the show, which is the 60-second selections, where all the panelists have 60 seconds to put up as many as they feel for the Dublin Racing Festival. I'm going to go quickly. One in the handicap chase on the Sunday, the 2 mile 5 handicap chase. Horse I've been waiting to go handicapping is back to normal. Won the auction hurdle for Gavin Cromwell last year. Punches down 3 nondescript runs over fences so far over 2 miles. Goes up to 2 mile 5. This looks like a long-term plan. Trainer should have won the race last year with Percival Galwa if he didn't come down at the last. And one which very strangely comes in the mare's bumper, so the 15th of 15 races. I am very much looking forward to seeing Amen Kate back out for Tom Cooper. Was very impressive down at Lustow when beating Carrickmore and Spruce by 10 lengths. Does have an absence to overcome, but that absence was always going to happen. They were putting her away for this race especially. It looks a really strong mare's bumper. I think it's a stronger race than the Geldings bumper, but I'm hoping her at maybe 9-2, 5-1 should be a fair price. So those two back to normal, and Amen Kate for myself. There's no 0-95 for us to put up anything, unfortunately. We're going to have to tackle a slightly better quality of race.
In fairness, the Andrew Collaborative did go and win his race, didn't he, again, since right horse wrong day potentially, but he definitely had it in him. My two are going to go on Sunday. 2 handicap horses, just to give a mention of Janie Macaroni in the Irish Stallion Farms EBF Paddy Maury Mullins handicap hurdle winner last time out, looks to be on the improve. And Joseph O'Brien, the way he has been targeting these big meetings for a guy that only has a small number of National Hunt horses, he has a habit of popping up on the big days with them, and I think that she could still be on the rise. It's up to 1-2-2 from 1-1-4 for last time, but I thought she won with a fair bit in hand. And my other one on the day, a horse that's rapidly improving as well, that's Brave Troop in the Timeless Sash Handicap Hurdle on the Sunday as well. Interesting colour switch now with Paul Byrne, still trained by Charles Burns. Charles, he won this race 3 years in a row with the likes of Off You Go, and those days are gone. And this horse, you just don't know where the bottom of it is just yet, and it doesn't look the deepest renewal. Down at the right end of the weights, I go Jenny Macaroni 14-1, and Brave Troop, I think he's around 11-2, 6-1.
Donn, for yourself, the Dublin Racing Festival best bet.
Yeah, I'll stick with Hello Neighbour in the juveniles hurdle, Andrew. I just think his flat class will shine through. I thought he did really well to win the last day, given that he seemed to do an awful lot wrong. His jumping wasn't great, but he still stuck on well to just get home from Lady Vega Allen. Look, he's going to face a big challenge from her and from St. Lucie in particular, and she was impressive winning at Point to Stand last time. But he's got a rating of 97 on the flat after just 2 runs on the flat. And I think he can come forward again. Interesting that Gavin Cromwell's fitting a hood for the first time. That just might help him through his races, and if it settle it through his race. And if he can jump a wee bit better than he did the last day in the Grade 2 race, and he did start off over hurdles in a Grade 2 contest instead of in the maiden hurdle, then that could see him take a nice step forward. And I think he's going to be a big player. And the other one is another Gavin Cromwell horse, actually, in the 2 mile 1 furlong handicap chase, the 405, the Ryanair handicap chase. Midnight it is, but he ran a big race in the Dan and Joe Moore Memorial handicap chase the last day at Ferryhouse. So he's had 15 runs over fences, but he seems to be in the form of his life this year. And he was just a wee bit unlucky the last day. He seemed to lose his pitch as they ran around the home turn, and then he stayed on really well to finish third. He jumps a wee bit to his left, so he's probably going to be better on a left-handed track. This 2 mile 1 furlong stiff track, they should go a fast pace. That should suit him. He's won over 2 miles and 3 furlongs, so he does see out this minimum trip well. And Connorstone Walsh takes £5 off. I think he could go well in that.
Hello Neighbour and Midnight it is for Donn. Dan, I know you'll put up something random. There's not that many English horses to get stuck into, but potentially you'll still find something.
No, I've not got that much of a domestic bias. Sometimes you got to know when you're beaten and you're up against it. In the 3 mile handicap hurdle on the Saturday, I thought Rushmount around 40-1 was a massive price. Now, Meeting of the Waters has potential to be Total Recall-esque style blip on the handicap, but Rushmount looked a novice of serious potential last season. You look at his second to Lecky Watson with Shannon Royale back in third, then bolted up in a 3 mile maiden against rivals now at 120 and 129, well beaten in second and third. Excuses thereafter, including on heavy ground. I thought he shaped better than the bare result last time out in the Thames qualifier at Leopardstown. He was pretty much there 2 out, slight mistake, just looked like he'd be in need of the run. He still looks to have a fair bit of upside to me, one of the lesser exposed in this. I couldn't quite believe it was as big as 40-1, to be honest. And I feel generally most of these have had a fair few goes at races like this, whereas he's relatively unexposed.
Thanks very much, lads. It's been an absolute pleasure to be talking about the Dublin Racing Festival. We really hope you have enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Racing TV channel down below so you don't miss out on any future On the Wires or any future episodes of plenty of our other great shows on the channel. We really hope you have an excellent weekend. Make sure to avail of all of the Boyle Sports offers throughout the show. There's QR codes going around the place. There's stuff down in the description. So make sure you get involved with all of that. And as always, enjoy the Dublin Racing Festival. Bet and gamble responsibly. And hopefully you have a couple of winners.
Boyle Sports. Don't just bet. Choose wisely.